Lightroom and Photoshop recently got a really nice update, which introduced the, I would say, first iteration of Adobe's noise reduction AI, which is very interesting because prior to this update, it was only possible to get any kind of noise reduction with AI by using the Topaz Labs AI noise reduction program. I think there are some others, but this is the most commonly used, I think. And also for deep sky astrophotographers, it was very useful to use the noiseXterminator program from Russell Crowe, which is also based on an AI model to help reduce the noise in images. And today I want to show you some comparison images between the images with the noise reduction AI from Lightroom and Photoshop, also with some images from the noiseXterminator, and also images with just the normal noise reduction applied from Lightroom. And for that, we first want to go into Lightroom, where I will show you where to find and how to apply the noise reduction AI. Okay, as you can see, we are now in Lightroom, and I've loaded up a folder with some images taken from a time lapse, which I've shot on La Palma, which is a very dark location, so we can expect a lot of noise in there, in single exposures at least. And let's hop over to the development tool to see the image a bit clearer here. And just to give you some context, this image was taken with a 40mm lens at f1.8, 20 seconds, and ISO 3200, and it was taken on my Sony a7R Astro modified, so full frame. Pretty old camera, but it's still doing really good in my opinion. So let's zoom in a little bit, and I hope you can see this on YouTube. There's a lot of noise in there. And when we have a look over here to the right, I have already lifted the exposure over one step, and I've also lifted the shadows at about 50%, which pushes the image to the limits. And the sky is actually not so bad, which is to be expected with this exposure time and this fast wide angle lens, but the foreground, as you can see, totally falls apart with this low amount of light that hit the sensor. Okay, so let's just go to the basic steps here. If you want to apply the noise reduction, you of course have to have the latest version of Lightroom, and it's pretty easy to find. You go into the details tab, and then you go down as usual to find the noise reduction tools and also the sharpening, but we are interested in the noise reduction. And normally you would only have these two options here, so the luminance noise reduction and the color noise reduction. But right above this is a new button which just says Denoise. So let's use this, click on it. Now it brings up this new window here, and we can have a preview of a small image. I would say it's like 100 by 100 pixels, or maybe even less. And we can apply or we can choose the amount of noise reduction. And let's just see what it does when we set it to 1. And you can already see that even at 1%, it does it does something, which is pretty interesting. It mainly reduces the red color noise, as far as I can see, when we set it to 1%. So let's set it to, I would say 50% is maybe a nice sweet spot. And of course, when we zoom out, we will see the full image, but this is just the raw image, so there's no noise reduction applied here. We can have a look at the Andromeda Galaxy. You can just click in here and see what it does. So the before and after shows a nice visible noise reduction, and it's not too big. We can just have a look and see what it does at 100%. And that's way too much, at least for me. So I would say we could just use 60% maybe. It's maybe just on the edge where the noise reduction starts to get a little bit too much. We can have another check at the foreground. And this looks to be pretty nice. So I would just click on enhance. But before that, it's pretty interesting that you can see the estimated time in here, and now it says 30 minutes, which is a lot, and I think it will go a bit faster. But yeah, this always depends on your hardware, so yeah, this time can be a lot higher and a lot lower. Okay, so I would say let's hit enhance, and then we can see the before and after. Alright, the image is done, as you can see, and this didn't took 30 minutes as it was estimated from the process window. It just took about 40 seconds, I would say. So yeah, I wouldn't bet my life on this estimated time. Yeah, so just that you know, it will go a lot faster than it will say on the process window. Okay, so when the images or the image is done, you can also do multiple images at once, just so that you know. But when one image is finished, it will create a stack within Lightroom here. So you can see that we have an image of 2, and I already opened up the stack. When I close it, it will normally or usually show it like this. And when I click on it, we have both images. So the image with the noise reduction, you can also see it here where it says the original file name with the enhanced noise reduction name on it, and it is a DNG file now, which I think is a raw format from Lightroom or Adobe itself, which is nice, but I don't think that DNG is compatible with programs like Astrophotography Processor or PixInsight, but we might have to check, or I might have to check that later. Alright, so what we can do now is to select both images, then hit C on your keyboard, and then we have the comparison view, and I can just close these two windows here on the right, and now we have both images on full view here. And we have the, let's just zoom in to check what we have here. Alright, we have the noise reduced image on the right and the raw image on the left. And yeah, now both is loaded. And at first glance, you can see that the noise on the left got very nicely reduced on the right here. But I think, at least in this case, this image now looks a bit like a painting. So it might not be perfect, or maybe the setting with 60% is a bit too much. We could try to lower it, or you could try to lower it in your images. But when I just scroll around here in the image, it looks pretty damn impressive, I think. At least for a first iteration of this process, which is pretty nice. And you will see in a lot of other examples later that it can be very nice, and it also has some pretty nice features. And one feature that I noticed, or I think I noticed immediately in this wide field of view here, or in this zoomed out version, is that it helps to somehow retain or just create H-alpha data, this red signal here, out of nowhere, out of basically noise, which is pretty impressive. As you can see on the left here, right here where my mouse is like circling around, here should be the Heart Nebula. And you can barely see it in here. Like, I can see that there is something, and I know that there's something. But here on the right, you can clearly see that there is a lot of red stuff in here, which is pretty cool. There's also some spot up here. I don't have the name of this nebula in my head right now, but I can just, I can see it barely here on the left. But here on the right, I can clearly see the signal, showing up in red, which is pretty impressive, and also super weird on one other hand. So yeah, that's one thing that is pretty useful. Also, one thing that I've noticed with the images from my Sony a7R is that when we zoom in here on the right, is that all images, I've tested this on multiple images with multiple lenses, multiple settings. So this is just a file error or a process error with these Sony files from my Sony a7R. But yeah, you can see that on the right side here, I always get this weird artifact, which is a straight line with multiple shades of purple, which is pretty weird. I mean, it's not a huge deal. You could just crop this away. But yeah, maybe this is a unique case with the Sony a7R, because I haven't seen this on my other cameras, so the Sony a7S and the Sony a7 II. But yeah. Okay, so now you know that yeah, you can use this in Lightroom, and now you know how to use it. Now we can go to Photoshop and have a look at some other comparisons and some other, yeah, images. So now we are in Photoshop, as you can see, and I have already prepared 4 different images with, yeah, 4 different, I would say, noise levels, like from good to pretty good, and then also one image which is pretty extreme, and this image clearly shows the limitations of this program, at least in the current state. So yeah, I would say we should start with this image right here, which is also an image from a time-lapse I've taken on La Palma. And yeah, immediately you can see on the right here that I have the same weird artifact line here, because this is also taken with the same equipment from the last shot we did in Lightroom, so my Sony a7R and the 14mm f1.8 Sigma lens. And yeah, I would say we just zoom in. I would say we can go like 100% and just, yeah, see some before and afters. So now we are right in the center of the Milky Way core, and now we have the Lightroom AI view, and I will just unclick this. Now we can see the raw view, and the first thing I immediately notice again, of course, is the lower noise in here. And just to let you know, all these images are with 60% noise reduction. So all images with the Lightroom AI are processed with 60% amount of the, yeah, noise reduction, just to let you know. Yeah, the first thing I immediately notice again is that the overall saturation is a bit higher, especially in the stars, and especially in the regions with these, yeah, pink, red, hydrogen alpha signal. So when I just click between these 2 images, we can clearly see that there's some more clearness in this H alpha data in here. When we just zoom out a little bit and have a look overall at some of the H alpha regions, they just pop a little bit more, which is pretty cool in my opinion. But also one thing I noticed, which is maybe good, maybe bad. I don't know if it really is a problem from the noise reduction AI, or if it's just in my images. But when I have the raw view of the image, I can clearly see out of focus stars here, like singular shapes of, yeah, unfocused stars. But when I hit the Lightroom AI, I can somewhat see some, yeah, like lines, like it almost tried to make a line out of 2 stars that are right next to each other. And I can see this over the entire image multiple times, especially like in this region here, where in this I can just see, yeah, out of focus stars and no big problems with the stars in general. But when I apply the Lightroom AI, yeah, I can see some weird line artifacts, I would call this. Maybe this is just this use case, and maybe this gets a little bit better over time. But yeah, just to keep you in mind, just to keep you know, to let you know that something like this can happen to your images as well. When we go, let's see, let's have a look at another area of the image. So of course the foreground, which is in this case pretty impressive. So when we just had a look at the raw image, it is very noisy. It is very noisy, and there's, when we go to the full view, we can also see some like purple glow on the bottom here, because I think this image was shot at ISO 6400, I think, with 15 seconds of exposure time. And also the shadows were lifted, so realistically we're having a look at like ISO 12800 down here with not the best camera, and also a very dark location. So there is there is a lot of noise in here in all cameras, I think. So this would be the same for your equipment maybe. Okay, so let's hit just the Lightroom AI again. And yeah, we can see a lot. So when I just click between the images, you can see that it cleaned up a lot in here, but it also created this paintery look. I don't know if you can see this on YouTube, but yeah, this is somewhat good, like a little bit too crazy, and I think that this could be maybe a little bit better with a lower noise reduction setting, so maybe like 40%. Just to say it again, these images were with 60%, so maybe this is a bit high, but I did it anyway just to see how 60% looks on the image. And yeah, when we go out, just the overall look is super clean now, which is very interesting. I mean, interesting is the wrong word. It is cool to see that Lightroom offers a feature for this now, and I think that that a lot of you guys will use this in the future, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's go to the next example, and in this example I have another view. So as mentioned, I have the Lightroom AI and I also have the noiseXterminator one, and I also, one thing I mentioned in the intro is that I have images with the normal Lightroom noise reduction, and yes, I had these images, but I think that I deleted them in these previews here, because I did these 4 previews like 4 or 5 days ago. So I think I have deleted them because the comparison wasn't like, yeah, interesting enough, I think. Okay, so the next shot here is a 30-second tracked exposure from the Milky Way core over, yeah, once again, La Palma. And this shot is a pretty cool example because we can focus more on the stars itself and not so much on the foreground. So when we zoom in, let's say we zoom in here to Row of Yuki. And now the first view that we have is the view from Lightroom AI. And this already looks pretty decent, but it also looks like, to me it looks a bit weird, because I know how stars should look like in my images, and I can definitely see that the stars are touched. So the noise reduction can mess with your stars. And let's just have a look at the raw view. And yeah, you can see a lot of noise once again, even with a 30-second exposure at, I think it was f2.5 with my 40mm lens once again. This is very noisy. And yeah, we can just click between the raw view and the Lightroom noise reduction, and it does a really good job. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is really nice. But when we zoom, like, let's go a bit extreme, 460%, we can see that these stars that are like normal in here, so we have white, more yellow, orange stars, blue stars, they are weird after the noise reduction. They are more yellow and also more green, magenta on some stars, which is not very nice. I mean, this is ultra pixel peeping. I mean, we are at 460% zoom in here, so when you zoom out you would never notice it. But I think, at least for me as a pixel peeper, this is a bit concerning. And for me, I think I would only use this on shots where I really don't care about the star shapes, or where I just want to use the foreground with it. And for me, I already know this, is that I won't use the Lightroom AI on images purely from the sky. I will just use this with images on the foreground, because I have a way better tool for the sky, which is noiseXterminator, which makes a lot of sense, because The Lightroom AI is definitely not trained on star images, or not 100%, maybe like 0.1% of the images in the training model are star images, if they even had star images. So you can see that it doesn't go very nice with stars in here. Alright, enough talking, let's compare this to the noiseXterminator image. And for me, at least, this is a lot better. I also used 60% as a setting for the noiseXterminator in this image, and it is so much better in my opinion. Yes, we still have noise, but it's a lot less noise compared to the raw image, and it doesn't mess with the stars, which is very important to me. When we zoom in to a different region here, you can see that the stars are untouched. The stars stay as they are. They are nice and round. They are nice and colorful as they should be. So nothing different. When we compare this to the Lightroom AI, you can see that some stars here, they are very weird green now. Just really, really weird. And it also seems to sharpen the image a little bit. But yeah, once again, with the Lightroom AI, we get a little bit more H-alpha signal. That's once again really, really impressive. That's really, really nice to see. But yeah, I don't like to have bad stars to just have a little bit more signal in the H-alpha regions. When we zoom out, we might be able to also see a little difference. So when we have the raw image here, when we apply the noiseXterminator, the overall look doesn't change a lot. I can only see that the noise in the foreground here gets a little bit more pushed in the back. Pushed in the back. I think that's not something that you can say, but I think you know what I mean. When we hit the Lightroom AI, I can clearly see that something is changing. It changes the color temperature, I think, a little bit more towards the green. I really hope that you can see this on YouTube, but I can clearly see a color temperature shift in the Lightroom AI image, which can be annoying, but it's also easily fixable, so shouldn't be that big of a problem. And one thing I also notice, once again here, Lightroom or the Noise AI from Adobe tries to combine multiple stars to a line. Like especially, I can clearly see this on this section of the sky and also on some areas up here, where it also seems like, in this case, it also seems like to move the star a little bit, or the center of the star just got moved a little bit to the right. Just really interesting to see. And yeah, especially here, you can also see, at least I can see, that there's like a gap between these noisy star areas here. And with the Lightroom AI, it tried to fill in the gap in here and try to make a line. So yeah, once again, not perfect, and I wouldn't use it for sky images because I have a better tool. I have the noiseXterminator, but if you don't have the noiseXterminator tool, it is a viable option, and maybe with a less aggressive setting, or maybe with, like, I would say a stronger effect on the Lightroom AI, or the noise reduction AI, and then just decreasing the opacity maybe to like 60% maybe helps a little bit. Let's say 70. Maybe something like this could work. But yeah, you have to try around for yourself to find out the best settings for you that are satisfying to you. Alright, going to the next example, which is a 20mm wide angle shot from the Black Forest, which is the closest dark sky area to my home, basically. And yeah, in this image we have once again I would say, repeating story. When we zoom in pretty far in, so we are at 200% now, the image, it it doesn't look very nice in my opinion. When we compare it to the raw image itself, it's clearly noise reduced, but I don't know, your opinion might be different on this, but I wouldn't consider this as usable to me. I wouldn't be very happy with this result. No, I wouldn't be very happy about this. I mean, if you're just doing this shot for social media, or if you're posting this online on any social media platform with a lower resolution, this could be fine. But especially when you're a pixel peeper like I am, it isn't very nice to see this. Maybe it's not the best example, because this was shot on a Sony a7S, which is only 12 megapixels, so maybe this works better with higher megapixel cameras. But yeah, this example is also not the best. I would say, like on all the images I've used, the noise reduction so far, it is basically a complete miss or hit. Like, in some images it's super nice and I'm like, wow, this is really nice, especially when you have foreground exposures that are like not perfectly long but long enough to have details in them. It is very nice, and some images they look like 10-minute foreground exposures, which is really nice. And some images like this, yeah, not very nice, not so nice. And yeah, when we have a look at the sky here, again, just for a brief second, we can have the same story here, that the raw image basically shows not a lot of H-alpha signal, which is to be expected from a short exposure time and also a wide angle lens on under, yeah, not the best skies. And yeah, with the noise reduction AI, we have some more H-alpha signal in here, which still is a little bit magic to me, but yeah, it works somehow, which is interesting. Okay, going to the last example, which is the most extreme out of all these images. And in this image, you can clearly see that this noise reduction algorithm has some limitations. And I also think that most AI models will have a hard time with this image. Because, yeah, when we look at this right here, it's not looking too bad. Especially when we have a look at the sky in here. Like, the skies, I would say fine. Yeah, fine is one word. It's okay. I would say it's usable for a short test exposure. But when we have a look at the raw image, we can really see where weird things happen. So just to give you some context, this shot was taken with a 40mm lens. Once again, a lot of 40mm lens images today, because most of my longer focal length images have a lot of exposure time, or longer exposure times than my wide angle shots, because yeah, I'm not a wide angle guy. I only use wide angle lenses mostly for time lapses and just short quick snapshots. So yeah, this was one of these snapshots, and I believe this one was an 8-second exposure at f2.5. Yeah, should be f2.5 and ISO 20,000, I believe, on my Sony a7 II, which isn't the best camera. It is okay, but yeah, you can see at ISO 20,000 most cameras will fall apart, and especially the Sony a7 II is not very nice. The sky, to be honest, isn't too bad, but that's usually the case under dark skies, that the sky is well enough exposed and there's not a huge amount of noise. But when we look at the foreground is always super noisy. So yeah, this is a hard time for any noise reduction technique. So when we have a look at the Lightroom AI, yeah, this is the true definition of a painting. Yeah, you can clearly see when we zoom in that it's creating some weird things out of noise. Like once again, when we are zoomed out, it is actually not super bad, but it also is not very nice. So yeah, you can see that this is not not meant to be used on super short exposures. So you still have to get some decently long exposures for the sky and for the foreground to get good results out of any noise reduction technique. I mean, you just have to have at least some details in your image to get anything out of it. When we just have a look at the trees up here, it's really nice, but it's also not very hard because we just have dark outlines in front of a white background sky. We also don't have a lot of details in here, so this is very easy. But yeah, once we go down to the foreground here, it's getting pretty hard. So final conclusion to this new noise reduction AI is that it is very useful, but only on images that have a decent amount of exposure time. So when we just had a look at the last image with the 8-second exposure, it just didn't work. So in my use case, at least, I would only use it for the foreground on decently long exposed foreground. So for me, a decently long exposure is like 30 to 60 seconds, and this time, especially with modern cameras and fast aperture lenses, it's possible to get a lot of details in this short amount of time. And then with this noise reduction applied, you get a pretty clean image. So pretty good and usable image out of this. For the sky, this depends on you and your opinion, but for me, I wouldn't recommend using the noise reduction AI from Adobe. If you're a pixel peeper, for that I would rather use the noiseXterminator from Russell Crowe. But yeah, if you're just a normal casual landscape astrophotographer or a bit more advanced astrophotographer that just wants a basic processing for images, this could be a really nice alternative, especially when you just, you already pay your monthly price for Lightroom and Photoshop. So paying extra for Topaz Denoise AI maybe is a bit too much, but this is up to you. And I hope that this video was a bit helpful to you. And yeah, I wish you clear skies, and I will see you in the next video.